So, okay, my name's Robert Dahl. This is first ever meetup WordPress talk I've ever done, so I'm pretty happy. I used to be, for about 7 years, I was a news photographer working in the media, and I was always told by all my photography instructors that the background was as important as the image was because it was a complete package. So I kind of took that into my web development when I was struggling with all that CSS and HTML, which made no sense to me whatsoever. This is not going to be so much about the code, but more about if you were already a coder or you employed a really talented one, what things that you could do and kind of best practices. So I first explored background images with this thing called devious behavior, which I wanted to have a background image, and I wanted something that everything kind of had an image related to it. It's all about street art. You can still submit stuff, and it was kind of a fun project that I kind of, it was a custom thing, and then I made it into a Tumblr blog because I wanted to see what Tumblr was like, and it's totally not as cool as WordPress, but it was a fun project, and it's still up there today, and it kind of led into more professional things. So with the sheer variety of screen resolutions, both in static and responsive websites, there seems to be a lot of screen real estate that's just not being used or not being used effectively. And I think it's a lost opportunity for a brand of a company that you could really use it to your advantage, but not necessarily detract from the main goal, which is the content. I really explored this with Uprising Bread's Bakery. This was their website in 2009. It was kind of built by a buddy of theirs, and as you can see, those lines up there, that's 800 pixels wide, 1200 pixels wide, 1600 pixels wide. So the bigger screen you got, the more black space you got, and the less website you got. And their brand was all built around that doodle, which wasn't very prominent in this website, but this doodle was everywhere. Like, it was on every single piece of branding they had, and it always wrapped in some way. So when I was brought onto the project, I was given the vector graphic of the doodle, and I was left with questions of how to transfer this to the new website. I knew that I wanted to do something with it, but I wasn't sure which. And it was as easy as slice doodle. So I can't repeat the graphic using the element background repeat, which just repeats anything, because it, as you can see on the previous slide, it wraps, like he had it wrapped around everything. So when I look at it here, it would just sit on the side of the page. The doodle's small, it has a lot of detail, and no one could see that in the old website, but they could see it when they bought something. And then I can't enlarge the doodle, and it wouldn't float off the page because most of the doodle would be behind the actual content. So it's like, I knew it was possible, but I wasn't given. This doodle was made in like the 70s. I couldn't find the graphic designer. I was just like, hey, here's the file, have some fun. And but I knew it was possible. So with some trial and error, I threw the doodle into Photoshop and kind of fooled around a bit, and I came up with this. So that's actually the doodle, that single doodle represented 9 times across. And then I was just like, okay, well, how am I gonna stretch that? So I laid out the doodle, and then I said, okay, those are the 9, and this thing is just kind of showing an example of the work I did. Then I said, what if I cropped in so that I wasn't just taking one doodle, but I was taking a bit from 9 of them with the one in the center. And then I got that. And so like 3 hours later, I was like, hey, I figured something out. This is great. Knowing that, like this was more my, tithing of like artistic torture than really the client wanting something. But when in the mock-up, I said, I'm going to try this. I'm not sure if it's going to work or not, but it would be really, and he said it would be really cool if you could do that.
Aren't there programs that can convert line art like that into vector?
That is all vector.
I thought you said the doodle was hand-drawn, wasn't it?
It was hand-drawn and then given to me in a vector file.
Oh, so they had already converted it to vector?
Yeah. Oh no, I didn't do that in Illustrator. That would have really killed me. And so I then got this, and this is shown on a black background just so you guys can see. And then when I built a page and I just kind of laid this out and I stretched it as many times as up and down, left, right, and it completely repeated perfectly. It did take me a couple times before I had the size right and I had it perfectly lined up because there's so much detail that I kind of wanted people to see it, but didn't want it to track. And now I can use background repeat because it's a completely repeatable object. And then I increase the size so everyone can see it. And this is on a 27-inch monitor, stretched the entire width. So this doodle just keeps on going, goes underneath the content, and then keeps on going. If the page is, 300 feet long, it would just repeat all the way down. And it's exactly like everything else in their branding. It's got, it's falling off the page just like a gift card. So that was really cool and torturous, but you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, Robert, how many companies do you know that have a custom-made doodle that's the center of their brand that, they're going to need that? Not too many, but it really kind of prepared me for the next project, which was the Rich Meadows Recycling. And they had a really bad CMS, and they had a really, they had a white background for their website, and they were also looking at doing a 40th anniversary banner, but they had a unique problem. A number of people in Maple Ridge, they have, TELUS will sell them broadband, and then they'll tell them later that it's actually mobile broadband. It's actually 3G in a cable box. And so the Rich Meadows Society was all, the entire thing was running off 3G. The other thing is that because they're a nonprofit society, TELUS provided them with phones, cell phones, data, web services, everything. So then I had a target market that had a really slow connection to the internet, looking at a website that was running off a server that wasn't necessarily the fastest server in the world too. So I was like, and they're just like, oh, but we want our branding in the doodle, in the website as well. Sorry?
Slow.
Yeah. So, but as you can see, this was their 40th anniversary banner. That was the new website background. And I tried to give them a hexadecimal background when I showed them the mock-up, and they said that was just as boring as the previous website. And so I was just like, okay, well, we can kind of, and they just, backgrounds to the rescue, really? Well, kind of help me out. This is the only thing I can really know what to talk about. So I'm stretching here, but one thing I did notice whenever I was working off of my phone or working at their offices, was that all the websites that I went to would always kind of load the background image first, or the background color, and then it would load the content in front. So I thought, okay, well what if I used this as the background, knowing that it's loading first? People would know that that's associated with Rich Meadows, so then people would know that the website's actually loading instead of just like showing a blank white screen. And then the website would actually load 5 seconds later, or whatever it would be. And, but I had another problem. This screen here was only so wide, only so high. But yet, this Rich Meadows site has hundreds of pages of content. And some of these pages are like, scroll on forever about what you can recycle, what you can't recycle. It's like everything that you need to know about recycling was like in this website. And so how can I get a static image like that to scroll down with the page and scroll up with the page? So I still had two problems. And as you can see, there's the bottom of the page and the bottom of the graphics at the bottom of the page. Well, one, we know that the background gets loaded first. Also, if you try to tether your phone on this website and you turn off your LTE, it will actually do what I tested it and it totally worked recently. And so we'll load our branding with color. We'll also give a hex color to the background in case the image doesn't load. So we got a little backup there. And it's like, yeah, but will the background scroll or be stretched on longer pieces of content? Fixed means it doesn't scroll. Oh no. Well, nope. Thanks to something I'm totally going to confuse you guys with after Jill's talk. Something called CSS background size cover. And instead of applying it to the body of what Jill was doing, you actually apply it to the HTML. And then it will actually scroll up and scroll down with your content. And also this is the size of the image. So it's actually will fit those super wide browsers. And it also set it to repeat and center in your CSS. And since the CSS is being applied to the HTML, you can put things on top of it, and there's no case of interacting with the body or interacting with articles or anything like that. So it's really cool. And those 2 points. That's like my greatest fear. Is it's like the site's been hacked and now you've got like, but
Does the background stay stationary?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the, so you scroll up.
What's the code behind that?
It's called background cover, and I'll give you the links to my slides.
So the image gets stretched out for wider when
no, the image just basically loads this wide.
Okay.
And then, regardless of whatever your browser screen size is, it just shows you that much of the image.
So you have to make it wider than any.
Yeah, so this image goes from here all the way to here.
Okay, so it still has to be wider than.
Yeah.
So what if it were narrower?
What if the image were narrower? Then I use this blue as the background. But we made it so wide that it didn't actually. And then, like, how did I get that black band? Well, I just applied the black band on top of the header, and then it And that's the code I used right there, and I'll give you a link to the slides later. And it won't work if you apply it to the body. You have to apply it to the HTML. And it's like, oh no, what happens when backgrounds go bad? Because, you know, they're really evil. So this paddling company wanted to use an image of a rocky beach on their new website. And I thought this was a great idea. We had this great picture of the beach that's actually right near where they paddle. And so I laid it out, and as you can see here, those rocks are really kind of bright and bold, and they're almost too big for the actual rock. And since we were using a background image, I didn't need to apply any CSS trickery to get the opacity. I could just go into Photoshop, reduce the opacity, put a white background on it, and upload the image because all we were using was images. I'm not saying that I couldn't do it via CSS, I just kind of took the easy way out because I was using an image already. But I had to be really careful with what kind of opacity I used between the white and the image. Okay, I actually used something between the 50 and the 75, but because I needed to have 175, 15. So here it's too white, and here it's almost too dark. So I kind of had to find the middle ground.
Did you not reduce the contrast maybe? Or?
Reduce the contrast of the image?
Yeah.
I just, basically what I did in Photoshop was I added a white background layer, and then I just reduced the opacity of the image, and then I just kind of reduced it as well. But the client who really liked her Internet Explorer and never ever updated her browser, and all of her friends never updated their browsers, and she was really difficult to deal with. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. She made the decision that she didn't want to go with the rocks at all. She wanted the blue background, which meant everything was a lot more legible. This white, by the way, is a hexadecimal white, or sorry, it's an RGB white that had a gradient coded in, so it wasn't an image. And as I like to say, there is technically nothing wrong with the 60% opacity of the background image, but the client just didn't like it. And at the end of the day, it's not your site, it's theirs. So that's what we ended up doing.
Did her old version of IE support the gradients?
Sorry?
Did her old version of IE support the gradients?
No. And then I built an entire IE style sheet just for her, and then I threw it all out because she just wanted to do this. And then I just kind of figured out that, you know, putting kayaks into the water was a lot easier than talking with her web developer. But I also want to say that even in a responsive world, backgrounds are still really important. 6S Marketing, they just launched a brand new site. It's like Sex on the Beach. It's seriously, but still, look, their background here is actually images, and the background here is actually white. And I've gone through a couple of responsive websites, and they've all kind of thought about their backgrounds in exactly the same way. So is 6S Marketing using their white background effectively? Well, yes, because it's a responsive site. But on the front page, which is kind of like the, sorry, well, it flexes in here. We'll so like, I mean, they've thought about what's going to happen with a site that But even beyond this page, when you click on another page, they've thought about, you know, what's actually going to happen on the sides of the page. Because regardless of, you know, you're on a mobile phone, you're on a 27-inch monitor. I don't want to say iMac because then Martin will throw something at me. But I did also want to. So if I should have automatically tweeted out this link before my talk started, and I should have already scheduled a post. So 32 spokes / backgrounds. Well, you'll get the slides. You'll have all these websites that were featured. But there is 2 websites that I did want to show you that completely fail. I think they're really cool, but no. Okay. Don. How did we know it was going to be BC Fairies? So they have a background image, which is this big. And then it's just like, oh, I'm going to scroll down the page. Oh, no, we just got it. And then if you, your computer hates me, Joe. And then if we like scroll in more, you'll actually see that there's a fairy right there. And they're just like, oh, that's really great if we could see that fairy, which is kind of in the middle of the nothing because it's hidden behind the site. It's like, it's kind of like going in.
See, they did one.
Oh yeah. But it's, you know, when you go into the cafeteria at BC Fairies, you know you're just going to get like a half-heartedly cooked something. It's almost like they've done that with the website. It's just like, we can do something really cool. And
Consistency in the branding.
Yes, exactly. No, I just, let's see if I can, I took a screenshot of this one because I didn't know if it was ever gonna, if we were gonna see this again, and when you guys, come on. Okay, let's see if it goes. And shockingly, the other ones are Canada. Let's hope I can find it though. No.
Oh, that's a great landing.
Yeah. Let me just. Do you know why I can't seem to copy and paste from?
Because it's Valentine's Day.
Hey! Like, oh my God! Where does the background start? Where does the? But it's just like, okay, it's click. Oh, but it's just like, yeah, I'm not lying. This is an actual screen capture from their website. And dear God, I don't even know where to go to book something if I really wanted to fly with Air Canada.
It looks like something about an ugly sweater.
Yeah, seriously. So, as you can see, and this is on my, I think I took this from my iMac, which was 27 inches wide, and I had the screen really wide. So, you don't really know how your user's going to look at that page. So how much of the background do you really want to show them, and what do you want them to see with it? That's kind of my whole talk. It's like, don't forget stuff around the edges, because people will see it. Questions?
Do you think if you lower the opacity on this specific website?
No, because look what happens when you. Oh no! Like if you like close this off right there, you would still see all this other
Yeah.
I mean, this page just should die. But one thing that Rich Meadows really likes their site. They really love how there's all this dynamics, and you can really see what, like, there's not your eye, because of those lines, lead into the page. So even if this was, you know, a lighter opacity, it would still do the same thing. And with the Air Canada one, it was advertising to me on the left side and on the right side. My eye had no idea where to go whatsoever.
Isn't that the same background as you? Okay.
Sorry?
Uh,
Any other questions? Yeah.
You know the built-in feature in WordPress that you can tile a background or
Yeah.
repeat. Do you ever use that?
Yeah, actually. And my background's not as cool as anyone else's, but I've got like a paper style background right here.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, tiled and repeated it. I just wanted to show you guys like kind of cool stuff that I've done with ridiculously awesome background.
And the uprising red one.
Sorry?
The uprising red.
Oh yeah, the Uprising Bread one is like completely repeated. You could repeat that thing to the forever, and it would still repeat itself. I was really proud that I was able to figure that out. Any other questions? Yay.